Welcome to the Referrals Podcast, the show designed to help everyone from the solopreneur to the Fortune 500 company win the referral game. If you want to build a company with an army of ambassadors and raving fans who speak highly of you and refer you willingly, you are in the right place. Let's meet your hosts, Chris Angel and Michael Maher.
Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of the Referrals Podcast. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel, here with your host, Michael Maher, and our special guest, Bob Burg. Michael, hello. Bob, hello.
Hello, Chris.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Welcome back, Bob.
Michael, great to see you again.
So
Yay.
This is awesome. This is a continuation of our last conversation where I don't want to say rudely cut off, but I was in the middle of asking Bob to go into influence. And so before we continue that conversation, Bob, about influence, I just want to give a quick overview of who you are for people if they don't know you. In their best-selling business parable, The Go-Giver, and then their follow-up, The Go-Giver leader, Bob Burg and John David Mann, challenged the conventional wisdom about success. Now they're back with a new and equally compelling story about the power of genuine influence in business and beyond. Bob speaks all over the world on topics related to The Go-Giver, as well as what he calls genuine influence. I love that. While his total book sales number well over 1 million copies, his and Mann's original book has itself sold over 800,000 copies and has spurred an international movement. Their new book, however, The Go-Giver Influencer, which is our topic today, might just be their most important book of all. There it is, influence. So today, Bob, we're talking about influence. Michael?
Go-Giver, influencer. It just goes together, right? It just makes a ton of sense. We were going to give them a minute last time, right? So it's like that it's too much wisdom to just borrow a minute. And Bob, thank you so much for being able to join us again on today's episode, and very much appreciated. And influence. It's like you are the go-giver and have a ton of influence in the world, ton of influence on me. You endorsed 7L, my first time book. You didn't just endorse it. You sent over like 42 changes to make. And by the way, I made all of them. And what's interesting is when I go around, I have a lot of really, really powerful endorsers, but you're like one of the three that everybody, Bob Burg endorsed it. It's like, Dave Ramsey, Gary Keller, and Bob Burg. Right. And so those are the ones that people really kind of stand up and notice. And your influence goes far, even beyond maybe even sometimes. And you've had a huge influence on me in my life, and I'm blessed to call you a friend, and definitely see you as an influencer with just touching and scratching the surface of the potential you have to give to the world. So thank you for being on really, and the added time. I understand the power of time. So
My absolute pleasure and honor. Thank you both for having me.
Well, I wonder if we could start with just let's unpack what the word influence means, because it's used a lot, it's tossed around. Sure. And so I'm curious from your perspective, Bob, what actually is influence?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's one of those words that's so used it can lose its meaning. And unless we kind of go back to the beginning and say, okay, what is it? We could be talking about a whole,
right.
5 people can be defining it different ways without even realizing it, right? So I think influence is on a couple of different levels. On a very, very basic level, influence can be defined as simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal.
Yeah.
That's the definition. But I don't think that is the essence of influence in any way. The essence, the substance of influence is pull. Pull as opposed to push, as in the age-old question, how far can you push a rope? Mm-hmm. And the answer is not very far, at least not very fast or very effectively, which is why great influencers don't push. You never hear people say, wow, that David or that Susan, she is so influential. She has a lot of push with people. He sure is pushy. He sure is pushy. Wow, that's cool. Great. No, they'd say she's influential. She has a lot of pull.
That's right.
That's what influence is. That's its essence. It's pull. It's an attraction. Great influencers, genuine influencers attract people first to themselves and then to their idea. And they do this again, not through pushing their ideas on people, pushing their will on others, being pushy, but through its opposite, pull. Now, how do you do this?
Yeah.
Well, I think the basic of that is that a genuine influencer understands on a very, both a logical level and on a heart level, what I believe was Dale Carnegie's underlying premise in his classic How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's my favorite line in the book. It's where he wrote, ultimately, people do things for their reasons, not our reasons. So the genuine influencer asks themselves questions to make sure that they're pointed in the right direction, other focused as opposed to I focused. So it might be, how is what I'm asking this person to do, how does it align with their goals, with their wants, their needs, their desires? How does what I'm asking this person to do, how does it align with their values? What problems am I solving for them by asking them to do this? And when we ask ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another person into doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment as opposed to trying to rely on some type of compliance. And when it comes to leadership, when it comes to influence, and sales and referrals is all about that. I love what my friend, leadership speaker and author Don Discumaci says. She says, compliance will never take you where commitment can go.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Michael, thoughts on that? You're speechless. This is the first time, ladies and gentlemen, Michael's been speechless.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, it's one of those where, influence is such a powerful word because influence comes from influere, which is from inflow, right? So it's like in flow, and it's one of those where it's like in flow is it almost happens somewhat naturally, right? And what we've discovered about being influential or in flow is it's just like if you're chasing, if you're pushing, if you're going out, you're not in flow, right? You're in flow, right? You want things to inflow, like that means flow towards you. And so how do we do that, right? And I think that's what Bob's going to talk about a lot today is influence is essentially how you can move people to action either on their behalf or your behalf, right? And what he's saying is that and the way to go with this is to move people on their behalf, and hopefully it's aligned with your behalf. So there's influence, and there's this more powerful definition of influence that Bob is giving, right?
Yeah. I love that. Bob, would you mind? So first of all, congratulations on the new book, The Go-Giver Influencer. It's so awesome. And what I'd like to do, if it's okay, is for you to go through sort of the 5 secrets of genuine influence in this conversation so people can hear it and then go read it.
Sure. Well, the first one is to master your emotions.
What? No way! That's crazy! Who would do such a thing? You can't master emotions. This is crazy. All right, sorry.
I love it. Yep, absolutely. And too often, Michael, that is how we come across to people.
Yeah, right?
Oh, man. Be the calm in the storm. Don't be the storm in the calm. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's actually a great saying. Yeah. And, we know how much we respect those people who can do that. And who is that, right? And so we know this, yet how often do we allow ourselves, based on what someone else says or does, we allow them to push our emotional hot buttons, and we cause ourselves to become annoyed or frustrated or helpless feeling or angry, and we say or do something which has the exact opposite results of what we want. Now, we know better. So why do we do it? And I believe the answer is because we're human beings. And as human beings, we are emotional creatures. It's how we're built. It's how we're made. Now, we'd like to think we're logical. And to a certain extent, of course, we are. But we're pretty emotion driven. We make major decisions based on emotion. And we back up those emotional decisions with logic. We rationalize, which basically means we tell ourselves rational lies. And we do this to justify either making that emotion-based decision when we really know we shouldn't have, or doing something, saying something, acting in a way that is counterproductive to what we are trying to attain. Okay. So what we're not saying is that you should deny your emotions or forego your emotions. First, that would not be aligning with human nature. You couldn't do it for very long. It's not sustainable. So no, we're not saying that. There's also no need to. Emotions are a wonderful part of life. They bring us joy. They make life worthwhile. No, that's fine. What we're saying is make sure you are mastering your emotions as opposed to they mastering you. Or as again, my friend Dondi Scumaci, I mentioned her earlier, and we use a sort of we use this line in the second book. We change it a little bit, but she's the inspiration for it, where she says, take your emotions along for the ride, but make sure you are driving the car.
Yeah.
You're at the wheel. Your emotions are in the passenger seat, helping, guiding you. They have wisdom to share, but they're tucked in. They're not at the wheel. Your logic is at the wheel. And that's how we need to make decisions if we want to create the environment where we're going to make the most productive decisions that are more often than not going to have the best results.
I can see too. So back to your definition of influence being pull and not push, that if your emotions are triggered and you're not able to control your emotions, then how you try to get a result is by pushing it through versus
absolutely
pulling of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yeah, so good. How about the second one? Take me to the second step, the second secret.
So this one is to step into the other person's shoes, which sounds kind of trite. We've certainly heard that saying before, and we think, well, maybe that's even easy. But then you think about it. Maybe it's not so easy when you realize that most of us have different size feet. In other words, literally, we cannot step into the other person's shoes. Figuratively, it means we cannot step into another person's head or their mind because we're not them. We come from
you say listen with the back of your neck. Right. What do you mean by that?
Sure. And that's because we come from different viewpoints, different ways of seeing the world. Right. So how are we going to understand what's in their head? How are we going to step into their shoes? Well, we do this first by asking questions. And after we ask these questions, we listen. But as one of the mentors told the protege in the story, don't just listen with your ears. That's surface listening. That's the kind most of us do. Right. We're listening in order to talk. We're willing to give them their 2 cents in order for us to get in our 10 cents. That's how it usually is. What he's saying is listen not just with your ears, listen with your eyes, listen with your posture, listen, as you just said, with the back of your neck. In other words, put your entire being into listening to this person. And here's what happens: 2 things. One, you actually will understand what this person needs, wants, desires, what they need from you, how you can bet, right? You're going to actually have the information. Second, this other person is going to feel listened to. They're going to feel heard. They're going to feel understood. And this is a very basic human need, to feel understood by another human being. And when that's the case, the walls break down, the resistance goes, and they're much more likely to be amenable to your ideas because the trust is much higher.
Yeah. That's why I like the phrase genuine influence, because genuine to me is I see you, I can get you. And so in the getting of who you are and maybe what you're feeling, experiencing, you used the word empathy earlier.
It's not manipulation. Right. It's not manipulation. Right. Cialdini's Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, right? In that book, he talks about influence, and in it can be either taken as a way to manipulate, or as in the right hands, it is, these are tools that can help you serve better. And I love it's amazing how much an adjective means, right? And in this case, genuine influence has a higher purpose to it. And I have to tell you, as a writer, I love the whole, everything that listen with the back of your neck implies. It is. I mean, what do you do when you're really listening? You're leaning in, right? And a lot of times that's neck driven. So it's just, I love that line from a writer's perspective and from a typically implementer.
And John David Mann, he's the lead writer in the story.
Wordsmith.
He's amazing. And that was his. And he brought that to me, and said, what do you think of this? And I said, listen with the back of your neck. Tell me about that. And he goes, well, it's weird. And he went, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is typical John Mann brilliance. And I started using that. What a difference it makes.
Working by referral is not some fairy tale world. It's real. I've seen it. And you can too. Invest in yourself by learning how to run your business by referral at Michael's upcoming live event. It will be a day filled with hands-on, how-to, low to no-cost strategies that you can implement in your business right away. Learn how to run a business by referral that not only feeds your family, but feeds your soul. Go to www.gengenevents.com today. That's www.gengenevents.com.
Well, let's take me to the third secret. What's the third secret of genuine influence?
This is to set the proper frame. This one is so important because when you set the proper or reset an already negatively set frame someone else brings to the table, you're really 90% of the way there to the results you want. Let me explain first what a frame even is. A frame is the foundation from which everything else evolves. May I share with you my favorite frame story, and it has absolutely nothing to do with business?
Yes, please.
And I love telling this story. It was about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I was at a Dunkin' Donuts, and anyone who knows me knows I'm a Dunkin'. Michael, that's where we met the first time. It was at that same. It is. Yep. It was at that same Dunkin' Donuts.
Loving a cup, man. Absolutely. Dunkin' Donuts. Yep.
You know it. Absolutely. So there was a little boy about maybe 2.5 years old, a little toddler, and he was running around the restaurant when his parents called him back over to the table. So he starts to walk over, and as he does, he takes a spill on the floor. He slips and falls. Now, he didn't hurt himself, you could tell, but you could tell he was shocked. He was surprised. This is not something that was in his model of what's supposed to happen. He didn't know what to do. So he immediately looks up at his mom and dad to get their interpretation of the event. Okay. What happened. He wanted to know, okay, mom and dad, what happens next? Now, I totally believe that had his parents gotten upset or panicky or, oh no, my poor baby, right? He'd have started to cry, but they just handled it so beautifully. They walked over hurriedly, but, very calmly. They had smiles on their face. They put out very positive vibes and they were laughing and, oh, how fun. What a good trick, and immediately the little boy began to laugh. Now, what the parents did is they set a positive, a productive frame from which he could operate.
Yeah.
And this is what we can do whenever we meet someone and are about to engage them. It might be with the smile, might be a handshake, it might be the way we're, whatever. Now, the question though is, what if someone else comes to the table with a already negative set frame? Let's take a situation where you're about to do a sales presentation for a new prospective customer, and they're a little defensive. They let you know that, I'm not an easy sell, and you don't know what's going on in their world or why but that's how it is. That their frame was one of kind of adversarial or defensive. Now, if we accept that frame, then it's push and push, and that's not going to have a pretty ending. And you know what I'm saying? And so so we need to reset the frame. So what if we were to do it this way? Let's say the prospect's name was Mary, and we were to start by saying something like, Mary, while we've been able to help a lot of people with this product, whether or not it's the right answer for you, we simply can't know without exploring deeper and determining whether it meets your specific needs. So please know our conversations for both of us to discover this. And if it does, great. If not, that's okay too.
And that's setting the frame. That's
resetting a frame from one of adversarial to one of two allies, just looking for the best result, which is what's going to serve her.
I got it. I would imagine as you reset that frame too, it would actually allow, if they were allowing them to control their emotions more, it allows you to actually listen from the back of your neck, because they start to open up differently and talk to you differently when you diffuse that with a different frame.
Well, and you really make a great point, because when you utilize these principles, it's helping the other person to do the same thing. See, when you can control your emotions and help the other person to work effectively within theirs, right? When you can listen so intently to someone that they drop their defenses and begin to trust you, thus they're now listening to you with a very open mind. Now you're creating that element where you really have influence.
Yeah.
And so, I love what you said.
Yeah, it's really good. Michael, thoughts on that? Oh, I lost your audio. All right, cool. Let me go to let's go to the fourth.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, real quick on that. So two of those things, like the example you gave in Dunkin' Donuts, I just absolutely love on that, because, it also goes back to master your emotions, right? If they jumped right into emotion around all of what happened, they would not have had the ability to reframe it, right? And I think there was even some, probably some conversations around them. And I mean, that shows a high emotional intelligence too, to take a child who just had that kind of a spill, and then all of a sudden it's reframed to a more positive light. Oh, boo-boo, oh, wasn't that fun? You fell down. Good thing you have all your padding in your, in your rear, So it's I think that's kind of goes back to the master your emotions as a centerpiece of all this. And on the thought of reframing, something that over time that I've really developed to reframe communication and conversations is whenever I start a phone call, or I sit down for a meeting, or I'm speaking to a sponsor for an event, my question is always the same. How do I make this call the biggest win for you? Right? How do I make this podcast the biggest win for you? How do I make this event the biggest win for you? When I'm meeting with it, how do I make this meeting the biggest win for you? And it immediately resets the frame on the whole meeting, that it's about them and their needs, and what we discover, and right in line with the Go-Giver philosophy is that if we help them meet their needs, and if we help make the meeting or the podcast or the event a win, we win as well. And then sometimes the win we get is 10 times more rewarding than the win of an individual sale.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Yeah. And when that's part of the culture, right? As we talked about, I think on the last podcast, it comes very naturally, because it's who you are. Yeah. It's not so much it's what you do, it's who you are. And it's because of who you are that it's what you do.
Yeah. That's so good. How about the fourth? Can you take me to the fourth secret, Bob?
Sure. The number 4 is to communicate with tact and empathy. My dad has always defined tact as the language of strength. And to me, it does take strength to be tactful. It goes back to, again, controlling your emotions, right? Yeah. It goes back, that's why controlling your emotions is the bedrock, of the whole thing. It takes a lot of strength to not fire back an angry email when someone writes an insulting email, or to comment on social media when someone says something politically that you just find is just absolutely ridiculous. Or when someone says this, or someone has an objection that they've asked for the 4th time that you've already explained, 3 different ways. So it takes strength to think about what you're going to say and ask yourself, is what I'm about to say, is it going to serve, or is it going to harm? Is it going to help? Is it going to heal, or is it going to destroy? And so tact is really a way of communicating an idea to someone that they may not ordinarily agree with, or appreciate, but doing so in such a way that not only are they not defensive toward you and resistant to your idea, but they are open to you and more accepting of your idea.
Wow.
And so when you can do that, wow, what a difference maker that is. And, when we talk about empathy, and this is a little different from stepping into another person's shoes, like we talk about in the second part, which is more about head to head, right? Understanding on a head level. Empathy is more understanding on a heart level. And we think, well, empathy by definition is the identification with or vicarious experiencing of another person's feelings. But here's the thing. We don't necessarily know how they feel. How can we? We're not them. We may not have had the same. But what we can do is this. We can always communicate, but in a lot of times this communication is through what we say or how we say it, but sometimes just how we show up. We communicate. I may not understand exactly how you feel, but I understand you're feeling something. And that this something is causing distress to you. and I'm there to help you through that.
Yeah.
And when we combine tact and empathy, wow, what a powerful combination.
Yeah. I would imagine that combination has a massive pull.
Yeah, well said.
There's
Exactly.
no push in that combination. That's all pull.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
That's why I think that in real estate, realtors, lenders, inspectors, warranty reps, title reps should all have to move every 3 years.
That's
so that they have empathy, so they actually, too often some of these things that they advise are based on somebody else's situation, right? And it's one of those where I think if they truly did buy every 3 years or sell every 3 years, and they were speaking with sellers and buyers, they would speak a whole lot softer, a whole lot more, empathetically.
Michael, I spoke at a mortgage lenders conference, and what got the biggest ooh or aha or whatever was when I said, I was talking about empathy, and I was saying, you guys do these things every day. It's what you do. But you might be talking about to someone who does this once or twice or 3 times in their life. You're asking them all sorts of personal questions about their finance. You don't know how these people grew up. They may have been taught never talk money with a stranger. You're talking about all these regulations, and you're asking them these deeply personal questions, and they may feel ashamed of this or questioning this, or feel you do it all the time. They don't. This is where empathy comes in. This is where empathy comes in, that for you, it's just a natural thing. For them, it's not.
Yep.
Yeah. And they said,
you nailed it.
You nailed it.
That's so good. Well, Bob, bring us home with the 5th secret. What's the 5th secret to genuine influence?
This one is to let go of having to be right. And again, very counterintuitive. Well, what do you mean? You don't care about being right? No, of course you care about being right. You're going to prepare to be right. You're going to do your best to obviously speak in truth and be right about what you're saying. But you're going to give up your attachment to having to be right. And here's what this does. This does not make you less influential. It makes you significantly more influential for 2 reasons. One, when you let go of having to be right, you allow yourself to go into learner's mode. This, as opposed to the person who cannot be wrong, even if they are proven wrong, even when they know they're wrong, they're not going to admit they're wrong because they can't be wrong. But when you can let go of having to, when you're able to learn, you're able to say, wow, maybe there's another side of it or something I haven't seen. This doesn't mean you have to agree with the other, but it means you're open to looking at different ways. Now, here's the second part, that when you let go of having to be right, the other person, once they discover that they are in a transaction, conversation, what have you, with someone who's not just looking to be right at all costs, who's not just looking to be right by making them wrong, who's not just looking to be right, now they feel great about you. They begin to like you more. They trust you more. They're going to forego their defensiveness. They're going to be much more likely to be open to your ideas.
I love that. That's so powerful. I think so many people get attached to, to use that word, they're attached to their worldview, their perspective, even their goals. They go in, in sales especially, we go in with goals and we're like, I need to make this goal. And then we get attached to like how we've rehearsed it in our head, and it makes us very unflexible in the interaction. Yeah,
exactly. It does. And I think so much of life and energy for a lot of people is spent on being right and looking good, right? Yeah. Looking good to the world and being right. And if we just give those up, we just put those to the side and we be kind and we love, right? It's amazing, A, how often we will be right. And number 2, how often you look good when you are being kind and you are being loving, right? And it's such a powerful message within the Go-Giver influencer that we can be really influential without keeping our thumb on people or making them comply or making them do. It's much more of they want to do, and we help hone what they want to do, right? And maybe even have them, maybe their path's like this, maybe this is the better path, right? Just slightly off their path, but we help them go down their path of mastery, success,
exactly,
more sales, whatever it may be, right? Achieve their goal.
Yeah. So good. So good. Well, I'm excited for the book to come out, Bob. Actually, it's already, how long has it been out? Since April?
Yeah.
What was the release date? April?
That's right. Couple months.
I heard that there is, people can actually download the first chapter or two.
First couple of chapters, yeah.
Okay. And so if people want to dive into the Go Giver Influencer, where can they go to kind of get access to those first couple chapters?
Yeah, the best place is thegogiver.com without the hyphen, thegogiver.com. And then just scroll down a few pages and you'll see where you can click on a link to get the first couple of chapters. You can do that for any of the books.
Perfect. You know,
Bob, do you mind if we put a link on referralspodcast.com? Is that okay? Directly to the download?
Sure.
So that
I
they can
give you an actual direct site to that if you want to. Sure.
If that's all right. Yeah, referralspodcast.com. We'll just have them click and they'll go right into where they can register for the first couple chapters, get it. And trust me, they need to just go buy the book. I mean, you're going to read 2 chapters. You're going to love it and you're going to want more, just like we always do with Bob Burg and like we do with anything written with John David Mann and Bob Burg. It's another one in the sequence. And like I said, the Go Giver is so impactful and it's just a paradigm shift for a lot of people. But I believe in what you said is that the Go Giver Influencer might be the most important book you've written, right? It's like the Go Giver on steroids almost.
We're very excited about it, and I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah. So good. Well, thank you so much, Bob, for being on the show. Thanks for your wisdom. I'm excited. There are a handful of authors. When their next book comes out, I have to go get that book, and I'm excited that you have another book out, and I'm excited. So thanks, gentlemen. Thank you for a great episode.
Thank you.
We will catch everybody
Thank you, Chris.
in the next Referrals podcast. See ya.
Thank you, Bob.